This video lesson will deal with the Romantic Age, its literary outlook, and its main themes. There will be other videos following regarding the first generation Romantic poets, which will comprise William Wordsworth and Samuel T. Coleridge, and the second generation Romantic poets regarding Percy Shelley, Lord Byron, and Keats. In this specific video, we will analyze the main themes and the general literary look. The last 30 years of the 18th century paved the way to the Romantic Age. Which developed to a certain extent in contrast with the main themes and the general literary current of the Augustan Age, or also known as the Enlightenment. The Romantic Age thus introduces new ideas and different perspectives. Samuel Richardson, in his novels, had already anticipated some of the themes that would be central during the Romantic Age, and that would focus mainly on poetry, because it once more became prevalent in writing during Romanticism. Some of the most important themes that Richardson introduced, paving the way, are surely the emotional and psychological insight played against reason and realism, that were instead mostly favored during the Augustan Age. So the new appeal that was exercised was simplicity of nature and the disturbing beauty of the Middle Ages, as opposed to the blind faith and scientific progress and mechanization so highly valued during the Augustan Age. What do we mean by that? Essentially, as far as the literary context is concerned, we will see the artists of this time progressively pulling away from the rational and, as we have said, unbounded faith in progress and scientific progress, especially, to give more emphasis to the inner turmoil of the individuals of this time. Therefore, the psychological insight is mostly important. But this all comes within a new perspective, and if during the Augustan Age the industrialization and mechanization of agriculture had become priorities and were highly valued, um, during the Romantic Age there is instead a more sensitive uh, perspective, which highlights the importance of, as we already said in the early Romantic Age outline, the importance of the rural villages, the historic past of England, therefore um, turning back to the Anglo-Saxon times to reevaluate them. And that is why, for instance, the Dark Ages is considered as prominent during this reevaluation of the past. And some of these elements were also strongly influenced by the theories that were elaborated by the Swiss philosopher known as Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who wrote treatises in which he rejected the age of enlightenment and its stress on rationalism, where instead he celebrated the superiority of emotions and sensations. And Rousseau is, in fact, the first to consider the child as special, and not, as it was common during the Augustan Age, as a so called half grown individual. He considered childhood, and therefore the child, as the bearer of innocence and purity, because just like the primitive man who lives in complete harmony with nature, according to Rousseau, the child too is an uncorrupted being, and um, what's good about him is that the nature of man is the benign aspect of childhood, and the child who eventually becomes evil after he comes into contact with the civilized society and its institutions, which Rousseau considered corrupted. So it is through the new myth of the bon sauvage that Rousseau views childhood as the archetype of wisdom and happiness, and that is why he advocated a return to nature and primitivism, and developed a dualism that saw on the one side the corrupted society, and on the other side nature as being peaceful and good. And this is one of the reasons why um, nature, the emotions, the positive feelings that nature bestows on the human being are considered positive aspects towards which to turn, and that are strictly connected to the rural context in which the common people lived, and were concentrated on nature specifically, and not yet corrupted with the hunger for power and wealth that instead is instilled in society, in the civilized society. So it is with this with this view in mind that Rousseau stands up for the poor and destitutes against the upper classes, and champions democracy as the only political system that can allow more equal opportunities and be more representative. Moreover, Rousseau also believes that imagination can be an escape from the hardship of reality, and through the ideal combined with the intimacy of personal emotions and the simplicity of nature, provide the individual with a possible refuge from the bleak reality of society. And again, when we speak of society and when we speak of its reality, we must always remember that the connection is with the industrialized world that was developing that had begun to develop, and that will fully develop in the Victorian age later on, but it is focused on the hardships that factory workers were um, obliged to endure. And Rousseau is a formidable inspiration from William Blake, who is a representative of such theories in English poetry and art in general, as we have already seen, considering that Blake was also an excellent engraver and not only a poet. But the Romantic Age also brings forth other issues that these new intellectual and artists face. Um, we can say that that Romanticism was, to a certain extent, the answer that many English writers developed to contrast the disappointments that the hope that the French Revolution had awakened in them of a changing world heading towards a more just class structure with more equality and fraternity. So, on the one hand, people being equal as far as rights were concerned, as far as their the value of life is concerned, and their feelings and their importance, and the solidarity that fraternity would bring forth in this new general perspective. However, though, the outcome, the results of the French Revolution shattered most of these hopes, and the fury that the terror brought with it after the first initial seeds that the political theories and the philosophical theories produced were traumatic for most of these writers, and as we will see, particularly for Wordsworth and Coleridge, who had to deal with this disappointment, and they dealt it thanks to their poetic endeavors um, and their artistic achievements. So, really, Romanticism can be said to be a time of transition, all of it, that gradually replaced in literature the major themes that were dear to the Augustan Age with new ideas, such as we have said, simple and humble country life that allows the sensitive poet to draw inspiration from the peaceful observation of nature and the psychological insight that goes along with it. This is especially typical, as we have said, in Wordsworth poetry, in which industrialization is shadowed by the genuine and authentic feelings that characterize country people and their lifestyle. Rousseau's theories on this new literary current also awaken the contemplation of desolate graveyards, as we have seen in the poet Gray, or ancient ruins, the castles and abbeys that belonged to the Middle Ages, echoing a preference for long gone and mysterious past that gave life to the so-called Gothic literature, as well as um, the the um, the fear of the excessive faith and in scientific progress that is um, outlined by Mary Shelley in her novel, underlining how the boundary between rationality and excessive self-esteem and self-confidence can bring man on the brink of excessive faith, not only in progress but arrogance in his personal achievements, and therefore um, emulate the Almighty, forgetting what are man's boundaries, in fact, as far as life is concerned.